right, so I've been requested by some of my followers on TikTok to rank my favorite quarterbacks heading into the 2023 NFL Draft, and I just think that this requires a much longer video than what I would post in 3 minutes. So, without further ado, this is my 2023 NFL Draft quarterbacks tier list. But before we get into ranking the quarterbacks, there's only about 10 or 11 guys who I've had the opportunity to see play enough football that I think I can actually formulate a credible opinion on them. So, first of all, I have that list right here in my notes. So we're going to talk about that. But first, let me explain the categories that I'm ranking these guys in. First of all, in S tier, at the very top, we have the next Patrick Mahomes. Spoiler alert, there's none of these guys in this draft. So you're not going to see anybody in this category, so we don't even have to talk about it. Next up, we have franchise guy that's going to have a very good career in the NFL, going to play for 10 to 20 years, and he's going to be a franchise guy. It's pretty self-explanatory. Next up, we have could be great, which is, yes, he could be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL if he goes to the right scenario, if he has good coaching, if he has the right weapons around him. Then we have solid career. Now, this covers a very wide range of football players because this is everybody from, a Kirk Cousins, maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo, to a Jacoby Brissett, Ryan Fitzpatrick type guy. He's going to play plenty of football games in his career. Is he ever going to be the guy? Probably not. But maybe Kirk Cousins is a little bit rich for this category too. But anyways, it's going to fluctuate, but this is a category. You'll see what I mean when, we put guys in this category. Next is which is, there's potential there, but odds are you're not going to have a good career in the NFL and you probably won't be playing NFL football for too long, but you also could be a backup. It's more of like I'm still unsure because the talent's there, but I don't really know who you are as a person, player, XYZ. And then last but not least, we have McDonald's, which means you're probably not going to be playing football in the NFL, but things could work out in the XFL. But Ben DiNucci is killing it there, so you might not even have a job in that league. So you might end up at McDonald's. Hopefully you did well in school. But without further ado, let's get into the list. I have 11 quarterbacks that I want to talk about today. First of all, let's talk about the obvious. Mr. Wonderful, Bryce Young. Bryce Young, you're not in ad tier. You're all the way at franchise guy tier. I'm going to be honest, Bryce Young is my number one quarterback in this draft class. This kid's an absolute stud. I understand there's some concerns about his size, but when I watch this guy play football, he just gets it. He understands the X's and O's of the game. He's really knowledgeable. He has very good awareness in the pocket. He knows when pass rushers are coming, and he protects himself pretty well for being undersized. And look, we've seen plenty of quarterbacks that are 6'5" and have all the intangibles, everything, and they don't pan out in the league. And we've seen plenty of short guys like Drew Brees, who's actually my comp for him as a player, Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts is not even that tall. Bryce Young is going to be a successful football player. The guy studies like nobody I've ever seen going into the NFL draft. He's an extremely intelligent young man, and he's going to be successful no matter where he goes. I hope he goes to the Houston Texans with DeMeco Ryans, but nonetheless, I think Bryce Young is going to have a great career. Moving down the list, we have CJ Stroud. He's my QB too. He's not in the ad tier. I just have to do that because I'm working my way up the list. He's in the could be great tier. He really is. I think that CJ Stroud, with the right coaching staff, I think if he goes to the Carolina Panthers, he's going to be in really good hands. Frank Reich, Josh McCown, a whole bunch of other really experienced guys. I have very high hopes for CJ Stroud. Now, he would not last a day on the Houston Texans. First of all, his best receiver is going to be a 30-something-year-old Robert Woods. He's not going to have many weapons to throw to. The Houston Texans do have a lot of draft capital, but outside of Laramie Tunsil, that offensive line is mediocre at best. I just don't think it's going to be a great scenario for him. With that being said, if he does fall in the draft, I don't anticipate seeing this. He is my current number one overall pick on my mock draft 1.0. But if he does fall, if he goes to a team like potentially the Raiders and goes to play with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, I think he'll be fine. But if he ends up on the Colts where Michael Pittman's his best receiver or the Texans, I just don't think it's going to work out really well, especially with rookie head coaches. But Frank Reich, plenty of experience, a lot of experience on that coaching staff in general, a lot of talent on that team. Adam Thielen will be there, DJ Chark. I think Terrence Marshall Jr. has a pretty good career ahead of him. Laviska Shenault, and they'll definitely draft somebody too later on in the draft. But I could see C.J. Stroud being a very good quarterback. Moving on to my QB3, we have Anthony Richardson, who's also in the could be great tier. Now, when we talk about having all the physical qualities of a quarterback, this guy, I think, is slightly, very slightly, a better athlete than Josh Allen. He's tall, he can throw the football a million miles, but he's even more talented of a runner, and he's honestly just a little bit more dense. Like, you can tell this guy's hitting the weight room, he's drinking his protein shakes. But there are plays where I've seen this guy, and I'm like, there's very few guys in the NFL that can make these kind of throws. And then there's time where he misses his layups. Now, Florida hasn't had a lot of continuity. Actually, a graduate of my current school or Sinus College, Dan Mullen, he was fired during the time Anthony Richardson was there. And he was a great coach with Kyle Trask, Darius Stoney. I'll never forgive Florida for doing that to my Dan Mullen. But, it's been a revolving door in there. He hasn't really had a lot of continuity. And for a quarterback to be successful, continuity is a big thing. I mean, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, great coaching staffs, great receivers out there. Like, Alabama's the model of consistency in college football. You're talking about two quarterbacks coming from great programs, and then you're looking at Anthony Richardson where, the receivers haven't always been there. It's not the most ideal scenario for a quarterback to play college football in. But here's the thing with Anthony Richardson. If he goes to a Raiders, I don't think Josh McDaniels is the guy. He needs to go to the Colts. Shane Steichen did a lot of great things with Jalen Hurts. I think he could use Anthony Richardson's athleticism very well. But I think if he sits for a year, I know that they're in more of a, we need a starter now type situation, but they're not in a draft position to get a starter now. But I think Anthony Richardson goes there, sits a year behind Gardner Minshew, maybe even comes in halfway through the season. Just takes a little bit of time. He's really young. He's really raw. But, again, could be great under the right circumstances. Anyways, moving on to my QB4. And you might think it's Will Levis. It's not. It's my boy. Where's he at? Where's Hendon Hooker? There he is, orange tie. It's Hendon Hooker. And I'm going to put him in the solid career right now, which I think that he could end up being a franchise quarterback, again, with the right scenario, but I don't think he can be great. I don't think Hendon Hooker in his career is ever going to be a top 10 quarterback, and that's no disrespect to him, but he's old. He's 25 years old. He's had a very long college career. It's not like there's nothing that we haven't seen him do, but I've seen him play really well in some very big scenarios against some really great talent. So I think he can go to an NFL team, and again, with the right receivers, with the right scenario, he's going to be a starter in the NFL, and if not, he's going to be a very good backup throughout his career. I don't think I'm going to put him in that category of, he's extremely talented, he's young, he showed so much potential, but he's shown that he can compete. He's a very solid quarterback. I mean, I really like his footwork. I really like his throwing motion. I'm a big fan of his mechanics. Really bright young man, understands the X's and O's of the game. A lot like Bryce Young, but Bryce Young's just got that sauce, whatever that is. Hendon Hooker's good. He's going to be good if he goes to a good team. I really don't know where to mock him yet, but if he goes to the Vikings, potentially, sits behind Kirk Cousins, and then the year later takes over, he's throwing to Justin Jefferson, that could be an ideal scenario for him. But again, go to the right team, have a good career. Don't think he's the guy, but could be a guy. Next up, somebody that I really don't know what to make of this, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but Will Levis is going in the ant tier. I personally believe that he is Zach Wilson 2.0, but just like if Zach Wilson was 2 inches taller and hit the weight room a whole lot more. I understand that the physical attributes are there just like Anthony Richardson, but first of all, he's not even 75% of the athlete that Anthony Richardson is. He doesn't see the game like how Bryce Young does. He doesn't throw the ball as nice as C.J. Stroud does. He doesn't add up to any of his contemporaries. When you're a quarterback going into this draft, you have to have something that sets you apart if you're going to be a first-round pick. Justin Herbert's thing going into the draft was he's a 4.0 student. He's a really bright kid. He's 6 foot something. People had nothing but good things to say about Justin Herbert. Will Levis, I don't know. His decision-making, some plays that he makes on tape that I watch, and I'm just like, look, I'm not a quarterback, and I don't think that I could play quarterback at any level of football. I'm a defensive guy. I'm a pass rusher. I don't believe in my abilities commanding an offense and throwing a football. But there's sometimes I'm like, look, I'm not going to make the plays that he makes, but I'm not going to make that mistake either, if you know what I mean. But with that being said, Will Levis, could he be in the could be great tier or the solid career tier? Sure. But right now I'm 75%. This guy's either going to be backing up and not seeing much playing time, and like 25%, this guy could be a starter and be good. I don't think, same with Hendon Hooker, I don't think he'll ever be a top 10 quarterback at any point in his career, but I think his ceiling is a Walmart Carson Wentz. That's who he reminds me of. Hear me out here. He's like Carson Wentz in that he possesses all of the physical attributes required to be great at the position, but he's also very lacking in the football IQ area and just the field awareness area. Like, some people just understand football. In terms of the X's and O's, the chess of the game, this is not a guy that really gets that. But I don't see a career as a quarterback for Will Levis. And I might be eating my words in 2024 when we're in the next year's draft, but I don't see it. He's going to go in the first round, though. I have him going in the top 7, I think. Moving down the list, I actually got to pull up. Who do we have next? Oh, my boy, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I am putting him in the could-be-great tier. And let me tell you why. First of all, DTR, spectacular athlete, not the biggest guy, but this kid, he's got a phenomenal arm, he can move throughout the field, and he's just a really special human being. I've seen interviews of this guy, and the opinions of coaches, analysts, everybody that's talked to this guy has nothing but great things to say about him, has been really impressed with the man that he is and the way that he carries himself, and that's what I look for in NFL quarterbacks. Like, when I'm grading guys, it is all about who you are as a person, because you are responsible for leading a group of 52 other men. You are the leader of this team. Regardless if you got that C on your chest or not, you're the quarterback, man. When the chips are down, everybody's going to be looking at you. All right? And this is exactly why I thought Jalen Hurts was going to work out when the Eagles drafted him. Even though he had signed Carson Wentz to that contract, I was like, look, just having Jalen Hurts in that locker room at that position group is going to make everything better. I don't care if he doesn't throw the ball as good as a Justin Herbert or a Joe Burrow. I don't care that he's not, as fast as Lamar Jackson. I just know that this guy possesses intangibles that not everybody else possesses. And that's how I feel about Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now, when you compound that with the fact that he's a spectacular athlete and a very hard worker, he could have a very good career in the NFL. Now, I actually have him mocked to go to the Ravens. And, I think that Lamar Jackson will not play another snap as a Baltimore Raven, but that's just my opinion. I think that if the Ravens get him, he sits for a year behind Tyler Huntley. This would be a really special pickup for them. Currently, I have him mocked as like a 5th-round pick, but I could see him climbing up draft boards. I think a lot of guys like him. His career at UCLA, I've seen him make some ill-advised plays, but I also think, like Anthony Richardson, he's a pretty raw talent, but I've seen what he could do with his legs. He's got a very good arm. He could throw the ball with just as much power as anybody I've seen in the NFL. He could work on his release a little bit. I think that his windup is just a little bit too slow for my taste right now. Like, he's got to be quicker with getting that ball out. Just, when you're playing in the NFL, these pass rushers, you're not going to have as much time in the NFL to sit back in the pocket, and that half a second really does matter when it comes to getting the ball out. But that's all stuff that you can work on once you get to the league. What you can teach is the person that this guy is. Again, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, keep your eye out for him. He is very special. Moving on to Max Duggan. I don't really have much to say about him, to be honest. I'm putting him in the tier. He's He had a good career at TCU, and he played some very good games in college football, but I don't see anything that's going to blow anybody away in the NFL. I also have him slated as a 5th-round pick right now. I know some people have him projected going a little bit higher, but I don't know. Again, I put him in the tier because I think most likely he's just going to be a whatever guy. You look at him and you're like, yeah, I don't really care. Now, with that being said, like Hendon Hooker, has played in very big games, was a very important piece on that TCU team, which made a unprecedented run last season in college football. He could be really solid, but I haven't seen as much tape on him as I have a lot of these other guys at the top. I mean, obviously, I've seen more Bryce Young than just about anybody because he plays at Alabama. For right now, Max Duggan's in the ant tier unless something comes out. But again, it's just nothing about him physically really jumps off the page to me. He's got good mechanics as a quarterback, but I don't think that he is mechanically superior to a lot of people in this draft. I don't know anything about him personally. But yeah, he's in the ant tier. Let's just move on. Next up on the list, I actually have him as Stanford guy in my notes. If you see him here, Tanner McKee. Where is this guy at? Oh, yes. Tanner McKee. I'm actually going to put him in the solid career tier. And here's why. Stanford quarterbacks are a very interesting thing to me. Because a very important aspect of my evaluation process at the quarterback position has to do with up here, your cognitive. Stanford quarterbacks, and this is how I felt about Davis Mills when he got drafted, they're not the generational talents. Outside of Andrew Luck, who was an anomaly, I mean, he was a generational talent for any quarterback in college football. They're just guys that know how to show up and do their job. And that's who I think Tanner McKee is. I think he throws a good football. He knows how to run a pro-style offense. The playbook is going to be no issue for him. I just don't know what else to say about the guy because he's not a game-changing talent, but I also don't think he's going to go in there and screw up and throw 5 interceptions in one game, but I also don't think he has the talent to throw 4 interceptions like a Trevor Lawrence and then come back in the second half and win the football game. But I do think he's a really smart guy. I could see him going to backup somewhere, being a career backup, maybe like a Brian Hoyer type guy. I think a team that's paying a franchise quarterback and needs a serviceable backup that they're not paying millions of dollars to will draft him in the late rounds. I could see him backing up Justin Herbert, potentially Joe Burrow. That would be a perfect fit for him. But I don't think he's ever going to be a starter in the league. But again, solid career. I think he could play 10 years as a backup. And I like him a little bit better than Max Duggan. Moving down the list, we got to talk about Jake Haener, the Fresno State guy. I actually forget what he looks like. What is his mitt? Jake Haener. Well, I need a picture of your face, buddy. Jake Haener. Yeah, this kid. I like this kid. He's good. Where's he at? Where's his ball? I don't see this ball at all. Yeah, I have no idea if he's even on this. Jake Haener, Fresno State. Jake Haener. Bueller. Yeah, guys, I might just be missing him. Anyways, I was going to put him in the solid career tier as well. You know who he kind of reminds me of, actually? Not in terms of the way that he plays the sport, but in the way I think his career is going to pan out. Gardner Minshew. I think he's going to be a late-round pick in the NFL draft. He's going to go somewhere, miraculously get the opportunity to start, and just play a little bit above expectation. Just from what I watch this guy play the game, like, he throws the ball with some mustard on it, man. Like, he could get the ball there. He throws a really nice-looking spiral. Again, I'm not a big fan of his release. It just takes him too long mechanically to get the ball out. But he's very impressive off schedule, and I think in order to be an NFL quarterback, you got to be able to make plays when the pocket evaporates, and he's just got really good awareness of that. And he's also always keeping his eyes down the field, so when he's scrambling around, trying to make a play, he's not looking to take off and run with the football. He's looking for who can I get the football to, because it's been 7 seconds. Somebody's got to be open. They can't hold coverage for this long. And he's really good at finding those guys on those off-schedule plays. And that was a big reason why I was a fan of Joe Burrow. It's why Mahomes is so good. And again, he's not the same talent. He's a little bit undersized. I don't think he's the best athlete. But again, another guy, kind of like Tanner McKee, I think he could go be a backup for a team that needs a guy cheap and end up starting a game because, I don't know, so-and-so goes down, or it's a 17-game season and we just need somebody to play week 18 because we've clinched a playoff spot. But nonetheless, Jake Haener, Fresno State, could not find his picture up here, but I do like him a lot. Next up, the BYU guy. I've seen some of his tape. He's in my notes as Jaren Hall, but I know it's not true. It's Jaren Hall. I'm going to put him in the ant tier for now. You know when you're watching somebody play football and you feel like everybody else is moving slower because they're just processing and moving at a much faster pace than everybody else? Or like a Le'Veon Bell at the running back position, for example. They're slowing the game down so that they can create a big play. Well, Jaren Hall is potentially the opposite of that. I just feel like every time I watch this guy, I'm like, everything seems so clunky. His processing of the game feels like it's taking way too long. When he runs the football, now he's a big body. Like, you could tell that he's hitting the gym, not just in terms of like height, but just like, he's a pretty stocky dude. But it just doesn't look like the game is at all moving as fast as it should be when he's playing the quarterback position for anybody. But when you watch, like, let's say, for instance, you watch Bryce Young's tape and then you watch Jaren Hall's tape, there's a clear difference in the way both of these two play the position. I mean, Bryce Hall is not the most spectacular athlete, but when he's playing the game, he's playing at speeds that are so far beyond everyone else. Jaren Hall, I'm just like, how long has he been in the pocket for? Like, that's actually what it feels like when I'm watching him play, and it's still 3 seconds, but I'm just like, does this guy have any sense of urgency? And maybe it's because he's a larger dude, but I don't know. That's just my analysis of him. I think he's going to get drafted, obviously. I have him as a late-round pick as well. But I'm 75% this guy's probably going to play through his rookie contract and then, maybe be a third string at some point in his career. But I haven't seen enough great stuff from this guy to have a substantial opinion about him being a spectacular football player, even a starter at that. And last but not least, we got to talk about him because he's just the elephant in the room. The guy who never loses. Stetson Bennett's going in the ant tier. I mean, I think this comes as a surprise to nobody. Stetson Bennett is, to put it in the most respectful way possible, a product of the pieces that have been put around him. He's an older guy. He's been playing college football for a while, and he's a phenomenal story. I actually really respect him as just a man in general. And he's another person that I think highly of just in a locker room sense. I think any team would benefit from having Stetson Bennett in the locker room. And selfishly, if my Philadelphia Eagles got him, I think he'd be the perfect, third string behind Hurts, Mariota. And if you need a guy, Stetson Bennett could make the magic happen one week if you really got desperate. However, I think in 4 or 5 years, we'll probably see him playing in the XFL. And I think he'll have a pretty solid XFL career. We've all seen Stetson Bennett play football. I don't really think I need to elaborate on his tape that much. He's not the biggest guy. He doesn't have the craziest arm. He's actually really good with his legs, which is why I think he could play in the Eagles offense, running those zone read concepts. I don't see anything from the quarterback position that would ever make me be like, oh, yeah, Stetson's the guy, But he's probably going to get drafted, who knows? Maybe he goes to the Patriots and then Bill Belichick makes him the starter. But I couldn't see him starting in a scenario where he beats out somebody else for the job. Again, I'm really impressed with what he did in his collegiate career. It's just college football and NFL football are two completely different sports. And yeah. Well, that's the tier list. I have now eaten up like 35 minutes of my time. Hopefully I can cut this down to like something reasonable for you guys to watch. And I'll also be posting clips on social media. Go follow me on TikTok, even though it's probably going to get taken down. But I have more smaller update type videos on there. Check out the Will McDonald video if you haven't already. That should be up by now. And yeah, stay tuned for more draft content. I wanted to get the quarterbacks out of the way. This isn't really my area of expertise. I'm a pass rusher. I don't do quarterback stuff. I understand run schemes and offenses really well. I also understand coverages and how different route concepts affect coverages. I'm definitely more of a defensive guy, just defensive and offensive line. That's why the show's called Between the Tackles. But I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to football, and I know a good talent when I see it. So hopefully you enjoyed the tier list. Please tell me your opinions in the comments. I love to hear them. And sometimes you guys actually change my opinions. So it's really nice reading what you guys have to think. With that being said, everybody have a great day. Thank you so much for watching the video. Leave a like and a subscription if you can. And yeah, go Birds.